Welcome to your weekly mastery tips and tricks. We have special guest Thomas Trafford here, and I am Heather Lee Chapman, and we are here to talk about how to connect to your intuition. So tips for you to better connect to your higher self, your intuitive self. And Thomas is an intuitive coach, and I'll let him introduce himself, but I just want to let you know why we're here today is we want to tell you that we recorded an incredible podcast episode on the Own It show that you need to check out. So you can check that out on our YouTube channel and Apple Podcast. And you can find all those links in the bio there. So welcome, Thomas. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me back, Heather. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. As Heather mentioned, my name is Thomas Trafford, and I am an intuitive counselor and a medium. And I run something called the Cedarwood Sanctuary. It's where I offer all of my services. I offer them both in person and over the internet. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world and where you're watching this from. And it's a lovely gig. It's a beautiful thing to try to help people better themselves through their own expansion. I love doing the work. And I love talking to you about all the things that kind of overlap between our two streams. And that brings us to here in our amazing podcast episode. I'm so excited that it's come out.
I know. So in the podcast episode, we have a great dialogue about connecting to your higher self, intuition, and so much more. So if you want to dive deeper into that, make sure you check out that episode. And Thomas is going to be back for season number 3. So you'll have to check that episode out at the beginning of 2023. So Thomas, I'll let you get started. What is a tip that you would like to share about how to tap into your intuition?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's something we hear about all the time, right? Following your gut and talking to that inner voice. And I think it's really worth mentioning that I think there's probably a couple of voices that go on inside our heads, right? And I think you and I have talked about, Heather, before, a vast majority of the people on the planet are walking around sort of operating from a voice or a place that they don't really question. And if you stop and think about it, if you've done any meditation work, you start to realize that there's actually an awareness behind that voice. So it starts to beg the question, who even am I? Like, who's in there, right? Like, what? and so starting to think about the intuition and how we sit in it more. For me, I use terms like alignment or being in your Zen place, which for me is coming back to center. So that's a huge tip for me. Number one, I guess, is just trying to understand how it feels in the body and the mind to be in center. We can often get triggered. We get upset. The dialogue starts like, wow, I never thought about all you hear that voice, that tone in your head, and vice versa the other way. You can be having a great win, and you can, people talk about the runner's high or some sort of situation. You're on a dance floor, you're at a wedding, the energy's really big, and you sort of go really hard the other way, and suddenly like nothing feels wrong and everything's amazing. So the idea of coming back to center, I think, is a really valuable one. I think for each of us, it actually could look quite different, whatever that, if it's a breathing exercise or a meditation practice or journaling daily, but just in each situation, trying to find a balanced place, because I think from that center, from that Zen place, you have the most awareness in terms of your perspective. So if there's any kind of challenging situation or conversation, coworker or relationship, not acting from the emotion that comes right up. If we are triggered, sometimes that can be a little hot. and so you like to come back to center. For me, with that one, I give the 48-hour rule always. If you feel a certain way, give it 24 hours. And if you still feel that way the next day, give it another 24. So by the 48th hour, your nervous system's calmed down, your body's out of fight or flight. We often react from that space. And if you still feel that feeling in the gut, there you go, right? So now the fight or flight is over, but I'm back in my centered, I've done my breathing, and I still feel that way, then send the email, then have the conversation. But you're going to be able to have it with a lot more kind of compassion, awareness, and control than if you were to, go at the sound of the gun going off at the beginning, right?
Absolutely. Being able to respond instead of react, because we're tapping into what voice is speaking. Is that our higher self, which is our intuition, which is what is going to give us the answer, which is in the highest good for us and all involved? Or is it from ego? So are we usually, tearing ourselves down, comparing ourselves to others? ego sometimes is there, to keep us safe, what have you. But then we also have the limiting belief system. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. There's not enough. So we have to start to understand what each one feels like. So is it the ego? Is it our higher self and our intuition? Or is it our limiting belief system, which is simply our conditioning? So
Mm-hmm.
are we operating from our old conditioning? Are we operating from our current present state, which I love that my mom calls your heart center. So
Oh, I
come
like
back
that.
to your heart center, or are we coming from ego? And I think what you said is really important, being aware of how it feels. So
Mm-hmm.
when we go to react, someone triggers you, says something that makes you mad or causes a feeling in you. So you feel triggered. Now, when you feel triggered and you go to react, is think about how that feels. It
Mm-hmm.
ener- Emotion has an energy or a frequency or a feeling in the body. So what does it feel like when you're mad? Or like you're saying, when nothing makes you mad, like what does that actually feel like when you're in bliss, literal
Right.
bliss land over there? And then when are you actually in alignment with your higher self, and what does that feel like? They say there's a knowing, that there's not emotion here. It just is
Mm-hmm.
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
In the other, there's often a lot of emotions, as you said, a lot of story attached to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something happened, that person did something, and boop, we pop into a story, and that voice in the head just starts a rant. And like, what voice is it? Is it the voice of
Yeah.
the higher self? Not likely.
Yeah.
Right? And so being aware that there are voices. And actually, let's just all pause for a second. What is happening in there, right? Is it like, why is Heather having us pause? There's nobody in there. What is she talking about? That voice right there.
Right.
That's it. And so that's our consciousness. And is it coming from a place that is serving us or holding us back? And so I like to say, is it a rock or is it a rocket? So the rock is
Cool.
the stuff that is holding us back, that we're
Mm-hmm.
resisting, that emotional traumas we're holding on to, things in our life that aren't in that heart center, those
Mm-hmm.
rocks that are weighing us down. And what are the rockets that are going to keep propelling us forward into alignment with our higher self? And
Mm-hmm.
really just getting clear on what that feels like. What
Mm-hmm.
does the higher self and the rockets feel like? And what do the rocks and the ego and the limiting belief system and the things in our life that are out of alignment with our higher self, what do they feel like? And
Right.
it's time for us to put the rocks down and pick up the rockets.
Absolutely. And we both are very aware of, we talk all the time whenever we meet about energy, and that's what you're talking about, right? That vibration. And being in alignment, like being in that place where you are the most connected to your higher self or your oversoul or whatever language you want to give it, that's also the place from which, um, because you are the most aligned, your frequency is the most powerful it can be. That's the space from where you can manifest. That's the space from where you can, make birth the reality that you want, right? And as you've just mentioned, if getting to that place has a you've had to put down some rocks to get there, then you're suddenly not carrying those limiting beliefs. You're suddenly not carrying those narratives that you've, whatever you've told yourself for how many ever years that you have. And so you have less noise in that space. And that's where I think you then have the capacity, because you are truly kind of connected to the larger part of the part of you that is divine, or the part of you that is a soul. You're sitting in that room, right? That voice starts to be able to have a spot at the microphone. And so you can do more. You're going to be happier there. You're going to be healthier there. You're going to be able to sort of align more things that you see coming down the pipe at you, right? And therefore you're going to lead a happier, healthier, wealthier life, right? And so that's another tip for me. And I know it might seem strange to do it, but we just did the thing where we stayed quiet and you said, what's that voice in there? So that voice, I want you to challenge it, I guess I would say, like the inner, it's like a toddler, how a toddler always says why every 5 seconds. Why is the sky blue? Why does the sun come out? That's what I always try to get my clients to do with themselves internally. You want to get up and get a snack off the couch. Okay, cool. Why? Well, I'm hungry. Okay, well, but you just ate dinner not that long ago, so are you actually hungry? Well, not really. Well, then why? Well, I think it'll taste good. Okay, is it the healthiest snack you could ever get? Well, no. Okay, so why? Like you keep going, and then eventually you're like, well, I'm actually worried about paying the bills, and so I just want to eat something, and that is going to be the most delicious. Okay, so we found the reason, and it doesn't mean don't get the snack, but as you're getting it, go like, oh, I think I just figured out that I'm getting this as a coping mechanism because I'm actually worried about something completely different and it had nothing to do with eating. And now you have a more true awareness of you and your operating and yourself. And from increasing that little bit, that little breadcrumb, increasing that trail of awareness, you're going to understand yourself more fully. And by understanding yourself more fully and widening that perspective, you can see the spot where you need to keep coming back to and pointing the needle, right?
I love
So
that.
it's, yeah, ask yourself why about everything you're doing.
So number one tip, you got to be present so you can ask yourself why. So I love that. And then my last tip for you guys to help you tap into your intuition, just practice playing with it. When I first started playing with it, I think I listened to the book The Hero by Rhonda Bryan. So she's got the hero, the power, the magic. There's a few of them. The Secret. So everyone has heard of The Secret. So in the book The Power, she said, just start guessing like what color clothes people will be wearing. So I always know I'm in the flow when I show up dressed in the same colors or stripes or whatever it is that the other people are wearing. And so I used to start to do it with my clients. And then they started to be like, what the heck? Because I'd always show up matching. And so then I finally taught it to my clients, and I had a husband and wife, and the three of us worked together. So it would be a joke like, who's out of the flow today? Like, which one of us comes, not matching? And then one might be in black, one might be in white, and then I'm in black and white stripes. And we would it would be like really cool. So just where's the perfect parking spot, and asking yourself, where should I park today? Or asking yourself, what route should I take today? Instead of just mindlessly driving the same way all the time. Perhaps there's a better route and your intuitive self can guide you there. So actually just tapping into that on a daily practice. And then as Thomas was saying, making sure that you're tapping into that awareness and actually asking yourself why. Paying attention to those voices in your head and paying attention to which one is in alignment with your higher self and which one is coming from fight or flight, ego, or old limiting beliefs. Because when we tap into our higher self and we can tap into our intuition, life is smoother, easier, and definitely more blissful.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
Amazing. So make sure you check out our podcast episode on the Own It Show. We are on Apple and on YouTube. And make sure that you come back, because tomorrow I am teaching the Bliss Masterclass. You will be able to join me on Zoom by clicking the link in the bio, or you can catch it live on my Facebook page. And I am teaching my tips and tricks on how I started to really get more in alignment with my higher self when I really started to get into flow and life started to get a lot easier for me. I created this exercise for myself and my clients, and my clients started getting great results. So they gave it to family members, and then so on and so forth. And it's been so much fun. So I'm going to teach an abbreviation of it for you all in the Coles Notes in 90 minutes tomorrow. So make sure you check that out. And then Thomas, where can they learn more about you?
You guys can find me on Instagram. The handle is the Cedarwood Sanctuary, all one word. And it's the same for the website. If you want to check out my services and fill out a form to connect with me, it's thecedarwoodsanctuary.ca.
I love it. And thank you so much for your time and energy. I know the two of us could stay here all day long, but we're going to let you all get back to your amazing day. Thank you so much. Make sure you check out the Own It Show and send Thomas a DM on IG. And we'll see you all back next time. Remember, stay happy, healthy, wealthy, and what is the best that can happen.
Bye, guys.